Hi. So, get mortgage ready. I've been talking about get mortgage ready for a while, but I realized the other day not everybody actually understands what it means. It's a phrase that I've coined personally, and after 5 years of being a mortgage advisor, I explain to people on a one-to-one when we have our initial conversation, I'm going to get you mortgage ready. And obviously they understand what it means, but en masse, no one understands what it means. So I thought I should start explaining. Now, this video today, it's actually for people who are renting or people who are still living at home and want to own one day. Now, what I mean by this is probably the best opportunity is to sort of explain my story a little bit. So, back quite a few years ago now, when I was in my 20s, I graduated from uni. I'd been living out for those 4 years while I did my degree, but as soon as I graduated, I moved back in with my parents because I had a graduate job. My income had sort of tripled, and I saved up 70% of what I was earning because I was living with my parents. And within 3 stroke 4 months, I was able to buy my own property. Now I know it's all relative, isn't it? Like what I was earning compared to what property prices were for now, what you're earning compared to property prices are, there is a bigger gap. I understand that completely, which is why I created Get Mortgage Ready. Now, originally, I created it a few years ago and it was a Facebook group. And then when I heard about school, skool.com, I knew I could house it on there, and that just seemed like the right place for me. So that's when it started, really. Again, got revamped. So between setting up the Facebook group a few years ago to setting up school now, I've just been teaching the Get Mortgage Ready program on a one-to-one basis with a lot of sort of individual clients. And what does it consist of? Well, basically, you have got the point of reviewing where you are. So you start at the very beginning, you review where you are. And what I always say to people is let's look at your latest bank statement, your latest pay slip, and your credit report and actually see where you are. And then from there, we can see where you need to get to before you get to that all important keys in the door right at the end of the journey. But before we even talk about reviewing your documents to see where you are right now, it's all about mindset. For me, I made a decision, and I remember the exact time what I was doing when I said I need to own my own place. And I don't know if any of you have got to that position yet, or you're kind of, I speak to a lot of people and they're like, I kind of think it's time when you know, you know, and then that really does motivate you. It's all about knowing your why. So I say saving 70% of my income. That's obviously not a possibility for everybody, but what can you do? It's all about making that decision. Anyway, um, when it comes to getting mortgage ready, there are three elements that I always talk about. So yes, the initial thing is you've got to make that decision. Do you want, I want to buy right now? And that's obviously what I did back in the time. But the other things to work on is your deposit and your credit and actually understanding the process and mortgage jargon. I remember sitting there so I went directly to my bank. I didn't know about mortgage brokers, mortgage advisors, and whole of market and all of that stuff. I just literally thought, okay, I've had account with this bank for years. I've had an undergraduate's account, and now it was moving to a graduate's bank account. And I was like, I'll just go to them. And I went to them and I did not have a clue. I just sat there nodding, smiling, hoping that they wouldn't realize that I didn't know what I was doing. And then at the end of the interview, they turned around and said, yeah, you're eligible for a mortgage. And I was like, okay then. But I never asked any questions because I thought to myself, and it sounds quite silly now, but I thought if I ask too many questions, they're going to realize I don't know what I'm doing. And then the stack of cards could all fall. So I didn't say anything. And then when I was looking for property, again, didn't ask the right questions. I didn't understand the difference between leasehold and freehold. I didn't understand about service charge and ground rent and all of that. I literally just stayed quiet, just hoping that it'll all be okay. So when I owned my first property, I realized why it had been such a bargain. When I actually bought it, it was just like, wow, this property's really cheap. But then I realized the lease was very short, the service charge was ridiculously expensive, and the ground rent wasn't the best either. So I've learned a lot of lessons along the way, and that's why when 5 years ago I got made redundant from being an accountant and I became a mortgage advisor, one of my first ever clients came in and she was a first time buyer. And I hope she won't mind me saying this, but she was quite clueless. She didn't know how it worked or anything like that, but she was willing to learn. And the thing I just loved about her was the fact that she wasn't afraid to ask a question. At the end of the day, she was confident in what she did for a living, and she knew mortgages wasn't that. And that's what you've got to remember. I remember having a client a few years ago, and she was like, "Oh, I'm not even sure how mortgages work and this and that. And oh, I'm sorry that I don't understand this stuff." And I asked what she did for a living, and she said she did social media. And at the time, I just started my YouTube channel, and I was clueless when it came to understanding YouTube. So I started asking her about, and she was talking about different funnels and this and that. And I was like, whoa, you know so much more than I do. And she goes, really? And I said, yes. When it comes to your industry, your expertise, you're an expert. When it comes to mortgages, you might not be. But don't feel bad about it. At the end of the day, that's it. As my mum always says, it takes all sorts to make a world. And what I am good at, you might not be, and vice versa, but we can help each other. And she was like, yeah, yeah, that makes sense. So this is something, if you don't get anything else out of this video, get out of the fact that it really, really does make a difference. It really, really does show that yeah, it really does. Asking questions, no question is a silly question. It really is important. Now, I'm just going to explain what Get Mortgage Ready is, and then I will let you go. I don't want it to be a long video. I just wanted to explain what I mean by Get Mortgage Ready. Now, in order to get a mortgage, as in a loan to buy a property, there are certain hoops you need to jump through, for want of a better word. Lenders will look at your affordability. They will look at your bank statements and how you manage your money. They will look at your credit report from their internal credit scoring to see how you manage credit. And they will also well, lenders won't, but you should understand how mortgages work and how the buying process works, how to deal with an estate agent. I think the two key things there are when you're viewing a property and when you're making an offer, and then the whole of the mortgage process. And then obviously at the end with the solicitor when it comes to searches, inquiries, and that kind of stuff. But it really does make a difference. So that is why I've created the Get Mortgage Ready Club. And I'm hoping that people will get what it's all about and join themselves. And I think you will get a lot out of it. Within the Get Mortgage Ready Club, there are certain elements. So when it comes to deposit, there's a whole section of different deposit saving strategies, the different types of bank accounts you can use when saving a deposit, all that information. When it comes to credit, it isn't just about whether you've what that credit score is, because lenders do internal credit scoring anyway. But you've got to understand your credit report and you've got to be able to sort of maintain it. And then when it comes to all the mortgage process, the buying process, and all of that jargon, like when I talk about leasehold and freehold, and when I talk about fixed rate and variable rate, and when I talk about all of this, it's all in the knowledge bank. So if you join the Get Mortgage Ready Club, the GMR Club, it is free to join and you get so much out of it. And then if you want to sign up to a step-by-step guide of how to move from being unclear to being 100% clear. You can do that as well. There are a couple of programs, roadmaps, I call them, within it. If you want to sort of do sign up to something a little bit more, or if you just want to go stay in the free area and meet me on my weekly Q&As and we go for any questions, I will be organising for specialists to come in as well. So, for instance, an estate agent, so you can understand that process, a conveyancer, property solicitor, so you can understand that process, a surveyor, so you can understand what the different types of surveys are. So, there is a lot you can learn, and honestly, it all benefits you. And the other thing is, what I would like to say, the Get Mortgage Ready Club is for people in on the long haul. It's not for people that just want to sort of buy next week. It's for those like myself, for example, graduated from uni, are gonna be saving their deposit for a while, and they just want a place where they can be accountable. They can ask questions. They can ask questions of me, and they can ask questions of the other members in the chapter. Sorry, in the group. And that is what the community is all about. That is what the Get Mortgage Ready Club is. We can all lean on each other and help each other rise, and that's the point. So, if anyone has any first-time buyer questions or future homeowner questions, if you don't feel you're a first-time buyer yet, then by all means put them in the comments. But I hope now you understand what Get Mortgage Ready means.